help states, cities, and counties build a budget, report on it, and also share it with their citizens. My wife and I have 2 daughters, and I try to subtly convince them that programming stuff is really cool. So subtle here is what we're going for, right? So this is my Griddle Halloween costume from last year. But yeah, so tonight I wanted to talk to you about some of the new stuff that's going on in Griddle. Disclaimer, this is not an attempt to get anybody to use Griddle. When I started this project, I was having a hard time finding other ones, so that was kind of the reason. Now there's like a lot of awesome ones, and they can kind of vary based on what your use case is. So anyways, so yeah, kind of touched on this, but how it started. At a previous job, we were evaluating front-end frameworks. We were trying to get away from kind of like, we had a lot of like spaghetti-ish kind of code, and we were trying to standardize on something. We had a smattering of other, various libraries used in different parts of our application. We were trying to standardize. I'd been using React for 4 days at this point, and I was like, it had that much of an impact on me that I was like, this is what we need to use. So one of the architects in my company said, all right, let's kind of, try out a couple of different options, and with a couple, like just a style of like a proof of concept on the types of pages that we had in our application. And a big part of that happened to be tables. And I was trying to find something. I was looking at NPM, GitHub, everything, and I did what any like self-respecting programmer would do, and started begging people on Twitter. So this is from 2014. Some guy just liked it, which was really helpful. But yeah. So I went home and tried my hand at making a grid. It started out pretty rough, but yeah. So that's how it started. I want to get into examples kind of right away. So. False alarm. So let's say we have a data structure like this, where we have like Twitter or Facebook or something. We have just an array of messages. We have latitude, longitude, a message, which happens to be in Latin. If any of you speak Latin here, that's awesome. But I do not. A name, and then some ID information. And so we can include Griddle and then say Griddle data equals messages. And we get a table like this. By default, we'll try to manage some state for you. You can sort, filter, things like that. But this is really ugly by default, depending on how you structure your data before you send it to the component. So this is the new version of Griddle. We kind of changed the API a little bit. We have components underneath for defining things. So we're going to define some column definitions here and say we have a column that corresponds to username, name, and message, and we're giving all of those a title. So and here we go. It's the same kind of thing where we can still sort and filter, but we have a title now too. I did not call this out before, but we have, again, if you're telling Griddle to manage the state, it has like built-in pagination and stuff. Okay. So one of the bigger things that we're trying to do with Griddle is enable customization, so where you can replace any part of the component with something that you needed. So I'm sure this is a feature that everyone's needed at one point or another, make something like giant text. So just kind of making a component to handle that. So kind of focusing in on just one column definition, we're going to toss on a new property called custom component equals giant text, and it'll run all of those columns through this component. So here we have the giant text rendition of the same table that we've been looking at. Another thing very useful here. So we can replace just individual cells, but that filter that we were using before, let's say we wanted to put an emoji in front of all of those. We can wrap our default with our new component. So you see here we have an emoji with a filter. And inside our Griddle definition now, we can say components, and we're overriding the default filter with this new one. And what that looks like is, my resolution's a little off now, but there we have the smiley emoji kind of bumping into the filter. So what this would let us do in like a more real-world scenario is we could take out the filter and replace it with something more powerful or things like that. But emojis are fun, and I wanted to figure out a way to work one into the presentation here. So let's say instead of a table, we wanted to display something more like Twitter or Facebook, where we're using like a card type thing where we're just picking out some of the information. We would do this by defining a new component that we want to make like an individual div. So we're showing our name, our username, and the message. We can take this thing like we were doing before where we were replacing our filter with an emoji filter and say, let's make this new item up and map over the records and the data and display them as a card instead. And then in Griddle, we would do the same kind of thing that we did with the filter, where we say, we want to replace table with our new component, list table. So as a list, here we go. So we just replaced the table with this card component. And again, we can still sort and filter, so, and we still have the pagination options. But using this strategy, we can do some more advanced things. So let's say we wanted to show a map. So this is the same kind of thing where we made a component that replaces the table that's a Google Map component. And say we just wanted to find Dora here. So yeah, same filter. Thanks. And we can apply this to a chart as well. Same kind of concept, but say like we only want to find people who whose name had Z in it. No results. But we can filter this chart and like we'll update our access labels and everything. So so yeah. So plugins. This might be a little tedious if we wanted to customize things all the time and use the same customizations for going from page to page, component to component, or project to project. So we could do something like this, where we define a list plugin. We give it a name, and then we can say what components we want to replace. I'm not covering everything that you can do with plugins because there's a whole API and there's some documentation too that if anyone's interested, that would be probably a better place to learn that. And I'll share the link at the end here. So we could do that. And some of the features that we are shipping with Griddle 1.0 when it comes out are plugins. Our version that we have out now has a lot of the features baked in, but we were thinking that it might be nice to send a smaller thing down and then let people who want different types of plugins like subgrids and things to just include their plugin and go from there. So here we have a virtual scrolling plugin. Normally how we would do this is we would say, npm install Griddle React, npm install Griddle position plugin. And what this does is it gets rid of our pagination and instead just kind of scrolls. So it's paging but just showing what, it's just replacing what is being rendered. And plugins can be factory functions. So if I needed to pass in specific customization to plugins, we can make a function that returns the actual plugin that we want and build things like from there. So let's say instead of instead of taking our map as just like replacing components, we wanted to make that a plugin, but we wanted to change the hover and like the kind of components that show up as the blips on the map. We could do that with building a factory function for this map plugin. So we say, we have a component that we want to show by default on the map, and then one that we want to show when you hover over it. So we'll just return the new plugin like we were doing before, like it was just a flat plugin, but it's this is kind of like a higher order component here that says add map components. So we're using that to build our plugin that gets returned by this factory function. So going back to our map example, we could say Griddle data equals messages, and then plugins equals map plugin with map blip and map text. So we've seen this before, but this is using something more plugin based. So here's our map blip plugin, and here's our map text plugin. So we could go back and reuse this. So let's say we wanted to take it, take current trends in mobile computing here, and make a list of Pokemon and where they are. We could say, okay, we have a map plugin, and we want to show a Pokeball on the map when it's as the location, and when you hover, you want to show the Pokemon character. So we go here to the other map plugin. So yeah, so we can go here and yeah, we have Pikachu when we hover, etc. So let's say that we only want to find Pikachu. And just do the same filter, and there we go. So this is an alpha version. I made the mistake of saying online a couple months ago that it would be out like in a month, and we're still kind of trying to figure some things out on the API. So we're trying to get, because we're trying to have plugins, we're trying to make sure that we have the API down to where we want it to be. So it's like, okay, here's version 1. It's like, oh wait, never mind, update all your plugins. So we're trying to avoid that. So we're trying to finish out the making it work and move on to making it work a lot better. So in retrospect, just kind of, this project's been around for a little while. I started with like script source reactjs tags. I have a lot of friends who are trying to learn React, and I think sometimes they complicate that. So I try to be really loud. Like I just started with just including a script and kind of running with it. And I love all the Webpack and Babel and everything, but I like to tell my friends, like, hey, if you're just starting out, just introduce one thing at a time. And there's lots of people that have been saying that, but I just like to echo that kind of sentiment. So one of the things I talked about, we're trying to make sure we have the API solid. We're breaking out a lot of the individual components. Like we have a state management module and a rendering module and some things like that. We broke them out into multiple GitHub repositories. We're trying to get those back under one place, and then use something like Lerna or something along those lines for shipping to different node module packages. That's at lernajs.io. And then kind of along those lines is just choosing API abstractions carefully. Sandy Metz has an awesome quote that says, like, prefer duplication over the wrong abstraction. It's a lot easier to get out of duplication, but once you get into a wrong abstraction, it's a lot harder. So thank you. I'll be hanging around if anybody has questions.
So for the plugin model you guys are building, are there any inspirations you're looking at right now? Like, I don't know, Draft.js has a plugin set up.
Yeah.
What are some of the?
Yeah, I guess Draft is definitely one. I've been looking at just some other languages, even how different, like Gems and .NET packages and stuff, how they handle the plugin model. I mean, obviously it's going to be in JavaScript, but trying to get inspiration from a lot of different places. So if anybody knows of places that would to get more inspiration, that would be awesome.
Has anyone used React Masonry as a table replacement? Like what you showed before?
I don't know. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Have you thought about doing like multiple sorting so that you could say sort on first name and then if there's duplicates, sort on last name?
Yes, we're trying to have like an order of, you can specify multiple columns to sort on. We don't have that totally like 100% there, but that's something that we're working on.
It's really like secondary sort though. We've written our own like plug-in function for it. It's like,
cool.
That's pretty easy. Sorting, tables. Anyone else?
Oh, right there. Yeah. Is there any like performance issues with like lots of data, say like millions of?
Yeah, and we're
Have
trying.
you, like encountered any issues with that?
Yeah, especially when you get into like the virtual scrolling type
Right.
of thing.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering.
That's one of the areas that we're still trying to like totally hammer out. Like it does all right, but not to where we want it to be. So.
Any other questions for Ryan?
So wait, when you paginate, how do you tell it to load more data, or is it just what you have in state in the UI?
With what I was showing, it's
Yeah.
just what's in the UI. There's like a plugin where you can say this is totally controlled by an external thing.
Okay. You just give it some function.
Yeah, you'd supply like some different functions for setting the state of how it's displaying.
Cool.
So, cool. Thanks, everyone.